Right, so my talk's on the Trikaya Doctrine. So as Parinivana mentioned about the Parinivana Sutta, in this sutta we are present at the Parinivana of the Buddha. This extraordinary being, this enlightened being, is passing away from the earthly realm. To some of us in the West, particularly those of us in the West, the death of a being's earthly body may seem like the end of things, but is it? The Parinivana Sutta takes us on a journey, one which sees the grief of those closest to the Buddha, his disciples who have travelled with him for years, he who has changed their lives in the most profound and dramatic way. He is who has communicated to them something of the experience of enlightenment. But the sutta also takes us on a bigger, more profound journey to the archetypal and to the cosmic. The sutta is bursting with references to that which is beyond the death of the Buddha as a human being, albeit an extraordinary human being. To the end he teaches, urging his disciples to see, saying, quote, "That which I have proclaimed and made known as the Dharma and the discipline, that shall be your master when I am gone." The Buddha's constant companion, the Venerable Ananda, who we see in the picture here, is distraught. His friend's about to pass away. He knows he's still much to learn, and he says, "I am still but a learner, and still have to strive for my own perfection." The Buddha, on hearing Ananda's distress, reminds him of that which is beyond his own death. "Have I not taught from the very beginning that with all that is dear and beloved, there must be change, separation and severance? Of that which is born, come into being, compounded and subject to decay, how can one say may it not come to dissolution?" So even as his parinirvana approaches, the Buddha is teaching unequivocally about reality, about impermanence, and the rise and fall of things, and that his earthly body too is subject to these things. So in describing the events around the Buddha's parinirvana, references to the magical, the profound, and that which is beyond concepts, shows that the Buddha was so much more than a human being that has now passed away. We hear in the sutta of deities from different realms being present at the passing. We hear rich veins of teachings weaving throughout the last discourses. And in those words of his foremost disciples, we hear of celestial flowers, magical happenings and rich imagery. These somewhat out there aspects of the sutta show us not only the historical Buddha Shakyamuni, but also the abstract principle of enlightenment at work, of which the historical Buddha was an embodiment. It shows the Buddha as the embodiment of the absolute or of truth. The Trikaya Doctrine clarifies these distinctions between the historical person and the enlightenment experience. In its explanation of the concepts, it describes the different kayas or bodies of the Buddha. The doctrine is complex and different schools have different interpretations of it. So I'm attempting a simple overview here. The Trikaya Doctrine was largely expanded by the Mahayana and Vajrayana periods of Buddhism and sees the kayas in like a vertical form. So at the top we have the Dharmakaya, which one could equate with the cosmic aspect. The Sambhogakaya, which we could regard as the archetypal aspect, and the Namanakaya, which we could regard as the earthly aspect. The Namanakaya refers to the enlightened historical person of the Buddha in his earthly form, a being subject to sickness, old age and death. It can also be explained as the principle of enlightenment taking physical form, in order to teach and save beings from the sufferings of samsara. The Dharmakaya, put simply, could be regarded as the principle of enlightenment, the body of truth, beyond concepts, beyond form, eternally present and transcending time. Whilst the Dharmakaya is the principle of enlightenment as distinct from the person realising it, it is also embodied in the Buddha. The Sambhogakaya is also known as the body of mutual delight, which is rather a strange description, and could be said to have a foot in both of the other kayas. And this is the realm of the archetypal, the ideal Buddha, a person and not a person. Sangharakshita has described it as below the level of the absolute, but above and beyond history. The Mahayana period of Buddhism developed the concept of the Sambhogakaya even further, and different archetypal Buddhas appeared, which embodied different aspects of the enlightenment experience. This became the mandala of the 5 Buddhas, each one rich in symbolism and imagery. And I was supposed to bring a copy of my picture of it, but unfortunately I forgot it, so apologies for that. Each of the 5 Buddha mandala represents different aspects, including different emblems, colours, animal associations, and they convey aspects of the Enlightenment experience which is beyond the word of, beyond concepts and words. Now in the picture we have here, we have the deep blue Buddha called Akshobhya, the meaning of his name being the imperturbable. And I'll read you an extract from this book, Guide to the Buddhas by Vasantara. And this gives you an idea of the archetypal. So as I read this extract, just allow it to kind of like wash over you, and rather than think too much of the actual words. So Akshobhya is seated in the heart of his realm on a vast blue lotus throne, supported by 4 massive elephants. The Buddha's body is made of deep blue light, the colour of the night sky in the tropics. He has dark hair, is dressed in flowing, richly ornamented robes, and sits in the full lotus position. His whole body radiates light. His left hand rests in his lap, totally relaxed. Standing upright on its palm is a golden vajra. His right hand reaches down, palm inwards. The tips of the deep blue fingers just touch the white moon mat on which he sits. There is something about this gesture that speaks to you. It is coming home. It is hitting the bedrock of existence. It is the answer to all questions. His whole figure conveys unshakable confidence. He is so rooted that nothing could ever ruffle his composure. He smiles and the whole land understands. The special quality he transmits is wisdom. In understanding the meaning of that gesture, all the inhabitants of his pure land become wise and enter a stage of the path to enlightenment from which there is no falling back. So it's a beautiful description. It goes into more depth, but it's just to give you a taste of Akshobhya, one of the 5 Buddhas. So we may well wonder, how does this affect us, and how does it affect our experience in our practice? Well, the Buddha was a normal human being, and someone we can identify with, even through the mists of time. As the embodiment of enlightenment, he could communicate that to us in ways we could begin to understand, being subject to aging, sickness and death, as we are. This perhaps we could regard as the realm of concept and conceptual knowledge. The Sambhogakaya, the realm of the archetype, speaks to us on a completely different level. In a way, it speaks to us of myth, symbol and beyond concept. In this same book, Guide to the Buddhas, Vasantara describes it as, in essence, an archetype is a deep mental patterning. When we encounter expressions of the archetypes, perhaps in our dreams, they often have a timeless quality and a sense of meaningfulness, a heightened reality that is hard to explain rationally. It is as though they connect together and resonate with the many threads of our experience. Archetypal material often feels transpersonal, as though one is tapping into experiences that go far into the past and are common to all human beings. So these archetypes, often represented beautifully in Buddhist art, such as this one here, speak to us on a level that is not of the intellect. Maybe it's on the level of the heart or something deep in our psyche. Vasantra again describes it as enlightenment is like a jewel, which can be looked at from different points of view. One is always looking at the same jewel, yet it has different facets, such as wisdom, compassion, peace, love, freedom and energy. To me, the story of the Buddha's Parinivana speaks to me on these different levels, on the human level, the archetypal level and the cosmic level. And in those I find inspiration, faith and a recognition of truth.
Very good.